How many of you are at the beginning of an application? Like it's on the design table right now. Okay? So this is the time when you would start considering it. You say, okay, are there some things that we want to do inside of our database, some things we want to enforce inside of our database, some things that we need to do inside of our database that we normally can't do or might be very hard, or that SQL Server is just not good at running? Okay? And then you consider those things and say, can we do those in CLR? And if we can, then we proceed forward. How many of you have an existing application that you maintain? Okay? I don't think you need to go redesign it just because someone told you about CLR. It's not that, you know? It's not like you're going to say, oh, let's go implement Link, you know, or let's go and do the AO.NET Entity Framework. This is a completely different thing. Are you with me? Okay, so we have to make a good determination of when I want to jump into it, and I think that's really at the beginning. Like for instance, okay, if someone said to you, in the new database that we're gonna have a URL column in there. Okay, what would you do? Just put it in some bar chart or something like that. Maybe try to put a nifty constraint on there, check constraint or something like that to make sure it validates it and looks like that. Can you do it? Maybe, you know. Otherwise, you're just sitting there. But what if you wanted to say, you know, in that database, we want to be able to pull out the URL, determine whether it's secured socket layers. We want to, you know, if it has the S on the HTTP. We want to determine what the actual domain name is and not the rest of the address. We want to know different pieces of it. Are you with me? Okay, I want to know if it's a URL that has like an address. I want to know if it says ASPX at the end, HTM, whether it says this, that, or the other. I want to know those pieces of that one piece of data. Okay, then an option could be to create your own data type. So at the beginning of a process, you would say, you know what, we could actually create a CLR data type in there that's not going to harm us in whatsoever. That's going to be beneficial for us and give us more leverage in our actual data. You see where I'm at? Okay, so there's a point where you figure it out. Not necessarily saying, you know what, we already have this URL column, sure would like to change that because someone showed me CLR. I don't know if you want to go there. Are you with me? Okay, and then there's the whole other part that you're having a problem with is the buy-in. The database administrator turned that off because they don't know enough about it. They don't know how safe it is, what it is. It's almost like the DBA is looking at you like you're a third party. You know, oh, you don't really work for this company. We're the DBAs. We work for the company. And we don't trust anything you write. You with me? But if it's in your specification that says we need this functionality, that's a different thing. Okay, and you can provide that functionality. So in the real world, I think where you'll actually start at is with user-defined functions. Okay, and like I said earlier, who would like to be able to do regular expressions inside of SQL Server? Okay, I'm surprised there's only that many here. Okay, how many of you know what a regular expression is? All right. All right. I mean, how many of you have an email column? Like there's a column in one of your tables, and all the stuff you have is email. Okay, and you put this lame little check constraint in there. You know, I mean, wouldn't you like to say, I've got a beautiful regular expression here. I want to plug that bad boy in there. You know, wouldn't that be nice? You know, how many of you have to scrub data? You get data in from someone like another part of another division or another company or one of your vendors or something like that. You get data in. You've got to go through and scrub the data first to make it look right before you can actually put it into where you need to go. How would you like to be able to run regular expressions against the data to see if it matches the right formats? You know, .NET can do regular expressions, can it? Absolutely. So hey, here's a place again where I might see where I can use that. Okay. Now. There are some things I'm going to show you. They have a couple of lame examples, and they have some good examples. So I'll share all the code and stuff like that, put it on our blog, and you'll have it. So let's take a look. Okay. So what's the process? The developer's job would be to create and test the code. Okay. You can use Visual Studio 2005, 2008, 2010. Okay. How many of you using 2010? Man, is that the most awesome program in the world? I mean, come on, man. It's like better than RAD. All right. All right, so and then you compile the code. Okay, so you're going to compile the code. Now, in development, I must say that it's really nifty that you can, in the development process, if you're connected, you have to connect to a SQL Server anyway. Click a button, it'll deploy it for you. Okay, it's already inside SQL Server. That's beautiful, but that's not going to happen inside your DBA is not going to like that. Your DBA is not going to want you to do that. Your DBA is not going to go and say, hey, could you install Visual Studio so that's not on my machine so I can just push the button and deploy it, right? So they need to know. So their job is to write the T-SQL statements that make your assembly show up inside of SQL Server, and then create all the actual T-SQL statements to expose all those 5 things that we talked about: store procedures, triggers, aggregates, user-defined data types, and user define functions. Okay, that's their job. So two roles. Okay, two roles, two things involved here. Plus the DBA has to lock down the database, right? That's their job. That's what you're saying? Okay, and rightfully so, they should be worried about things. Okay? Because yes, I as a developer could write some malicious code. Fair enough? I mean, I could do it. I'm not going to, but I could. Right? And because they don't understand what code is, and you're giving them a compiled DLL, they have no idea what's inside it. Now, I could see if I was getting it from a third party. But if the division is there at your office, you know what I mean? There's probably a bigger problem than your performance on your SQL Server. Just saying. Okay? So, all right, what is assembly? You can help me out. We can get through this real quick. You just tell me what an assembly is. Awesome. It's a bunch of people sitting around. All right, good answer. Who else knows what an assembly is? Yes?
I'm the only one. It's just the bytecode. It's the compile.
Okay, so you compiled the DLL, right? Okay, here's your assembly. It's a DLL or an EXE. We do call them, just so you know, you can call them portable executable files. If you're sitting around the dinner table sometime and you want to talk about it, hey, yes, do you have that portable executable file? Yes, I got that. Okay, whether DLLs or EXEs, that's all we really know. There's two other ones can be there too, but you'll never hear of those. So these are the ones. Okay, they contain the manifest and the missile code. So theoretically, okay, considering that the people in your office who give you that DLL are not going to go in and obfuscate it. Don't make me say that again. Okay, they're not going to go and hide what the code is. Then theoretically, if a DBA was smart enough, they could go ahead and disassemble the code and see what was inside of it. Okay, but they can really just ask you could they see the code if they knew that much about it anyway, right? So it's not like we're hiding too much stuff on it. We're just company to company, right? So it has manifest and the missile code inside of it. It's a unit deployment. Those just all work. We don't need the registry for it, okay? And that's very important because when we bring it into SQL Server, something magical is going to happen. Okay, it's not that big of a deal, but still, I say it like that because you're not all, oh, magical. Okay, all right. So your CLR projects are compiled to DLL files. Okay, let's take a look at it. Okay, I have a couple of different examples here. How are we doing on time? Oh man. Okay, here we go. Where's the time go? Here we are. All right, well, I got a bunch of stuff here. Let's just take a look at different things. Okay, first of all, when I create a project, can you guys see that? We're good? Okay, I'll make the code bigger when I get to start talking about the code. Okay, if I went to file, new project, made it. Okay, this is Visual Studio 2010, so I don't know if you've noticed yet, but inside of it, they have this whole database section down here. Okay, everybody notice that when you're looking at stuff? And there's a single word of SQL Server in there. Okay? So we could have probably just named the category SQL Server, but that's all right. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of project types in here which have nothing to do with actual CLR, which those are things that are really nice. If you had to use Visual Studio Team Systems in the past, or Team Suite, a lot of those database tools made it over into like the professional version of Visual Studio 2010, which is nice. I don't know if you've ever tried it or tried any of these, but you should look into them. Did you know that we have like a database compare and stuff like that in here? You know, how many of you have ever had to write a project? I know I'm off topic, but how many of you have ever had to write a project where you have the database and you need to compare what's in this database and this other database, test to dev, things like that? Yeah. Did you know that that tool is right here inside of Visual Studio? You can compare the schema and you can compare the data. Okay?
Is that only 2010?
Yeah. It's in the earlier versions, but it's in the database edition in the other versions. Oh. This one's right here inside of professional. This is professional, I think. Yeah, I don't know what I installed, but I think it's professional. Okay, so look into that stuff. There's some really nice tools here. Really nice tools. And you can create a database project so that you build the database from the beginning, and then you can version all the code for. You can version your database.